Samantha from Jessima Tutorials here, and today I'm going to show you how to create a cute pair of earrings using a couple tricks with polymer clay. Now, I have two colours of polymer clay. This is Primo Pearl White and this is Primo Black. You can use pearl white or black in any brand that you want. You could also substitute the pearl white out for regular white clay if you want. But those are the two colours I'm using. The pieces of clay have been rolled out to 1mm thick, or the middle setting of my pasta machine. Now we're going to work with the pearl white first. And I'm going to bring over a couple of leaves because that's what I'm going to be using to form my pattern today. And any leaves will work, just go find some nice tiny ones that you think look cute. And then I'm just going to bring over the cutter set that I'm going to be using because we need to mark that out before moving on. These two are going to be used with the black, so I'm going to put those to the side. The semicircle cutter is the one that I'm going to be using, and what I'm going to do is I am going to actually very gently mark out a silhouette of that cutter so that I know where to place the leaves. But before we place the leaves, you're going to want some metal leaf, which is this. And I'm using the gold version of it. It's just a gold metal leaf. You can use any colour of metal leaf you want, but I am going to be using gold today. And I don't need all of that, I'll probably need only about half of this. Okay, and there we go. I have just cut it into segments, and then I'm going to take that, I'm going to lift that up, and just place that down over the area that I want it. Repeat for the other one. So I'm talking quietly because I don't want to blow the leaf everywhere. And just place that down. I'm just trying to get it into the right spot. There we go. Place that down like so, and just make sure that you cover the whole area. I did miss one little spot there, and I'm trying to use as little leaf as possible because a lot of it does get lifted up in this technique, so try to work with a small amount. I'll put that to the side because I don't need that anymore. Alright, and then you're going to work with your actual leaves. Also have a piece of printing paper off to the side, just ready to go for the next step. And I'm going to take my leaf and I am going to place it down just about where I want it, and then I'm going to take another one and I'm going to make sure to mirror that effect because we're making earrings, so I want a mirrored effect. Then take a piece of paper and place that down and give it a good old burnish to stick the leaves down onto the clay. Now make sure you do a good job with this because the metal leaf, the gold metal leaf, is fairly stick proof and the leaves won't stick very easily to it, so you want to continue burnishing this until you really can't feel the outline of the leaf anymore. It's a little confusing when we're talking about two different kinds of leaves. But there we go, that is just about how it should look. I'm going to put these to the side because I don't need those anymore. Then you're going to use a piece of packing tape. And this is just the piece. And you're going to do this in one go because you will lift up the leaves. And so you can only do this in one round. Smooth that over the surface, making sure to give it a good burnish because you want to pick up everything that isn't under the actual leaves. So give it a good burnish, and this is why I was saying all of that metal leaf is going to get picked up. Right, then just grab a piece of that tape like so, and peel up, like so. Alright, and before I go further, I want to go over what happened over here. Something that you should try to avoid that I didn't actually take into account. This is the spot where the metal leaves overlapped, and so the tape only picked up the first layer of metal leaf and therefore left the bottom layer, not giving a completely clean finish. Now unfortunately there's not much that I can do about that without completely ruining the texture. I'll show you the best way to fix it, but just for when you're doing your project, make sure that the metal leaf doesn't overlap and you should be able to avoid this problem. Okay, and to fix it, I'm going to take a little bit of packing tape. I'm just going to wrap it around my finger, and I'm going to use that to just carefully dab around the area. Just be very careful because you don't want to get it picking up the leaf part anyway. And you can go in very carefully, remove that. You can see there that there's a little bit more overlap over there. So yeah, if you want to really avoid the problem, you could actually cut the pearl white into two separate pieces before applying your leaf, and then there would be no risk of this happening. But yeah, I thought I should show how to fix it. Okay, and I'm just very carefully dabbing around the edges, and that can fix it. Now before I go further and potentially mess something up, you might not need to go all of the way because the semicircle cutter isn't going to cover everything. So I'm just going to pick up the leaf that is shown. Alright, and that's as far as I dare go. Now I'm going to take a piece of paper and I'm going to give it another very quick burnish, just to smooth out any spots that might have been created from the tape. Not enough to smooth out the texture completely. Right, then before actually cutting this out, lift it up off of your tile. I am using a glass tile, but you can use a glazed ceramic tile as well. I've used that in the past. And just place it down onto a piece of paper. And grab another piece of paper and just give it another light burnish. And this is just more to smooth out the back than anything else. So that the back is nice and smooth when you cut it out. Alright. Okay. And I'll just lift that up. Okay, and then we're ready to cut out the pieces. Okay, and I'm just going to find the correct spot. So just bear with me for a moment. Just want to make sure that I'm getting that in the right place. Okay, and then cut that out like so. Then just gently pop it out the cutter. If you don't want it to stick in the cutter, you could continue to cut it out on the glass or ceramic tile, but then your back is not going to be nice and smooth, so I sacrifice that to get a nice clean back because it just saves time. Okay, and then cut out the next one. Like so, and then just pop it out. Nice and easy to pop out. Later on when I use the semicircle, I might actually cut it out on the glass tile because sometimes it can be a little difficult to pop out of the cutter if it sticks. So whether you cut it out on a piece of paper or a tile really depends on the shape that you're working with. Now this, we've got metal leaf still on it. What I would advise doing is just use your piece of tape to get rid of all of the metal leaf, and then you can just pop the pearl white clay back in to your packet, and then there's no waste clay whatsoever. Alright, and I've popped those to the side, and now I'm going to work with a piece of black. Again, rolled out to the same thickness as the previous piece of clay. And then you're going to want to choose a texture that matches in theme with the leaves. And so I've gone with this tree ring texture. Go with any texture that you would like, but this is the one I'm going with. If you're interested in it, I have it on my Etsy store, Jessima Design. There is a link in the description below, along with a link to the cutters that I'm using in today's tutorial. Now, I would advise when using a texture stamp like this to apply a light layer of cornstarch to both the clay and the stamp, and this just helps prevent it from sticking. If you're using a silicone or rubber texture stamp, skip this step because generally those stamps are quite stick proof already. Rubber stamps, sometimes depending on how thick, or not thick, how deep they are. If they're quite deep, then apply a little bit of cornstarch, but generally you're all good to go with those. Alright, and then also, let me just find this. Here it is. I have a background texture, which is this nice, very light, kind of a rough knit texture, which is going to be the background texture. So I have that ready to go as well. Alright, then you're going to take your clay and you're going to lay that over the top, and then you're going to grab your other texture and you're going to lay that over the top, and you're going to use that to texture your clay. That way you get both at the same time. Okay, then just lift up the background texture, and that I'll leave exactly the way it is, and then you should be able to lift this one out fairly easily. So, and just be gentle because sometimes it does rip, but that looks just about right. Then grab a brush and just brush around to get rid of that cornstarch. The clay should appear shiny again. Continue brushing until you see the clay gets a nice shine to it, and this is essentially buffing the texture, and we'll remove the cornstarch and give you a nice shiny finish. And here is how it should look. Same with the back, you can give that a buff as well. But what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to bring over a ceramic tile, one specifically that I can put in the oven, because the cutters that I'm going to use now to cut this out are fairly small and tight, and I won't be able to pop the clay out of them very easily, so I want to make sure that it is stuck down to a surface to prevent the clay from sticking. So just gently buff it down onto the tile so that it is stuck down. And I'm going to bring over the cutters that I'm going to be using. I'm going to be using this semicircle cutter and, well, this kind of donut semicircle, and then a regular semicircle. And I am going to cut out my pieces before I apply any mica powder. Okay, and I'm going to position it so that I have the semicircle on one side, lift up, gently tap back down, rotate, place this semicircle essentially in the same spot but on the opposite side, so that I capture that tree ring texture. And then I am going to cut these out, and I'm not too worried about where they're going to be sitting, just making sure that they're going to be, again, opposites. And cut out, and then you should be able to lift that clay, no problem. And there we go. This can again go with your black clay, no waste whatsoever. The only waste we have in this project is the bit of metal leaf, and you can reduce that waste by only applying as much metal leaf as you need. Then I'm going to grab some gold mica clay, or not mica clay, mica powder, there we go. And I am going to apply that, don't need a huge amount, but I'm going to apply that to the black, and we're going to use the same tape technique but with the mica clay, and just apply that on like so, making sure to get it in all of the little nooks and crevices. Any gold mica powder will work, I'm using the one from my Etsy store, Jessima Design, which is a really nice Egyptian gold. Okay, and just make sure that you get everywhere, and once you've got it, give it a little bit of a burnish, because that will both stick the powder down and will give you a more even finish. And I'm actually going to bring over the softer brush for that. And to burnish, just rotate around like this. Highly recommend that for mica powders. There we go. And it'll also get rid of a lot of the extra mica powder. Alright, and then you're going to grab another piece of tape again. And this should hopefully not lift the clay up from the tile. It shouldn't, but well, if it does, I'll show you what to do. But you're going to apply that tape down and gently press it. Don't burnish because you don't want to remove your texture. Just place it down enough that you've got most of the surface area covered with the tape, and then lift up like so. And then I'm going to go over the surface again, just because sometimes the first go around doesn't pick up all of the mica powder, so I like to do it twice to make sure that I get as clean a finish as I can. There we go, and that will pick up a little bit of mica powder. Alright, and then I'm going to leave it exactly like that. Let me just show you how that looks. Quite nice. And then I'm going to leave those on the tile. They can bake like that, and I'll give the back a little bit of a sand to finish it off, but the back is textured, so it shouldn't have too much in the way of shiny spots. And then as far as the other two pieces that I have, I'm going to leave those on the piece of paper, and they're going to bake like that. This is going to go into the oven for about 40 minutes at Primo's recommended temperature. And then when they come out, going to give them a little bit of a sand and going to get to varnishing them. And there we go. That's how they look once they're out of the oven. And now at this point, if you look at the back here, it is pretty much completely matte. These ones will have some shiny spots. Let me just show that, but the texture is still present. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring over some polishing papers, and I'm going to skip the 400 and the 600, and I'm going to move straight up to the 800, and I'm just going to give these backs a very quick sand just to get rid of the shine and to matte everything up so that it's all the same surface shine, I guess is the best way to put it. And then I'm going to varnish them. Now you could apply resin to these, but I'm going to be varnishing them with a gloss varnish. They do need to get sealed by something because of the mica powder and the metal leaf on the surface. So choose something that you think will look nice as a finish. And I'm not going to worry about sanding the pearl white ones because they've already got a nice flat matte finish on the back. Okay, and there we go. That should do. Then let me just move those out the way and make sure you don't have dust. And I'm going to be using Varathane water-based polyurethane gloss varnish, or just Varathane. And I'm just going to apply a thin coat to each piece. I'm not going to worry about varnishing the back. The back can stay matte. If you want to varnish the back, you can. But apply one coat of varnish, just a nice thin coat, like so. Leave that for about 15 minutes to dry, and then I would recommend applying another coat because that generally gives a really nice shiny finish. That isn't the same as resin, but is just as nice as resin in my opinion. Yeah, and then let that dry for at least another 15 minutes or until the varnish is completely translucent. It shouldn't be opaque anymore. And then we can move on to assembling. Okay, and here is how they look once I've finished varnishing them. And you can see there that it's got a really nice shine while still keeping the texture. And this is why I've gone with varnish rather than resin, because this way you can still see the texture and feel it in the piece, but it still has also a really nice shine to it. Now, the next step is going to be to drill holes, and I've already done some of them, that being the 3 up here, and I'm going to show you how to do the 2 on each of these sides. And the way to make sure that your holes line up nicely is to actually assemble the earring the way that you would want to assemble it, and then just keep it together while marking out the holes. So I'm going to take my drill bit here, and I'm just going to dent a hole like so, and that way the holes line up perfectly. And you would repeat on the other side, just dent a hole so that they line up next to one another. And then that way when you go to drill the holes, they'll already be centered and lined up. And that's how I drill the holes for earrings, to make sure that they all line up, because that can be a little tricky. And then all you do is, like what I've done there, you just use a little drill to create the hole, and it shouldn't take too long. You can drill the holes before the pieces are baked using a little needle tool, though I typically prefer to do it after it's baked, because then there's no risk of distortion at all. So you can do that if you want to, but I still highly recommend doing it after baking. And then just continue drilling all of the holes, and then we can assemble. And I've got 4 jump rings and a ear wire, and I've got 2 smaller ones, 2 larger ones. The larger ones are to join these 2 pieces together, and then the smaller ones are to join the top in this part and then the ear wire in this part. Okay. And typically when I make multi-piece earrings like this, I will make the clay a millimeter or less thick, because then the jump rings will assemble nicely, and there won't be too much clay to get through. Because if you're using thicker pieces of clay, this part can be overly tricky. So if you're worried about what thickness to make your pieces, if you're making multi-piece earrings, go on the thinner end of things. It will make it easier. Okay, and there you can see that that should have a nice amount of movement. Pieces should be able to move around. At least that's how I want. If you don't want the pieces to move around as much as that, you can use thicker jump rings. That works as well. Or you could use smaller jump rings, though you might need to force the pieces a little bit, because there's not as much room for the jump ring to go through. Hope that makes sense. But there we go. You'll just pop them together like so. Nice and easy. And there's one piece, and it should move around nicely like that. And then you're going to take the other pieces and assemble the rest of the earring. And I'm just going to show all of that, I think. And you can, of course, use resin, as I said before. Though if you do plan on using resin for your piece, it adds a fair amount of thickness to the piece, so make it thinner than you would otherwise. Like if I was going to add resin to these pieces over here instead of varnish, and excuse me, let me start that again. If I was going to add resin to these instead of varnish, I would actually make them 0.5 millimeter thick, and then use the same size jump rings, because the resin does add a decent amount. So that is something to keep in mind when adding resin to your pieces. But yeah, that is just about it. I think that's all of the questions that I've covered. If you have any more, please do leave them in the comments below. But yes, that is just about it for this tutorial. And here is the other one. And I think they turned out quite nice. Black and white is always a classic combination, especially when you combine it with gold. But you could actually swap out the gold for any other colour you want. I have a number of different coloured metal leaves on my Etsy store Jessima design. One that I think would work quite well for this project actually is the ruby red. You could swap that out over here and then use a red mica powder. That could look quite effective. So that's just something to keep in mind if you do plan on doing this project and you don't like the gold. But yeah, that is just about it. As I said before, if you have questions, please leave them in the comments below. Also, if you have suggestions for future tutorials, I'm always open to those, and read through all of the comments, so if you have any, leave them in the description. In the comments. And if you'd like to support the channel so I can continue creating videos just like this one, please do consider becoming a member of the channel. There is a join button just below this video, or there is a link to my Patreon account. They're both exactly the same as each other, so whichever one works best for you, either one is greatly appreciated. Another way to support the channel that is free is to leave a like and subscribe to the channel, as I do videos like this just about every single day, and it helps get this video out to more people that like polymer clay. But yeah, that is just about it. I do hope that you enjoyed, and I will see you in the next video. Bye for now.